Alright guys, how we doing today? This is Destiny back with another review, DVD review. And today we are doing Vince McMahon, the DVD review. On his DVD, I was gonna do Jake Roberts' DVD, but in full honesty, I don't know, one thing, I didn't have anything written down for that one. And I'm just not ready to do that one yet. There's a couple more that I want to get done before I get to that one, because there's some graphic detail. I mean, not too much, but like, I don't know, you'll see when I get to it, but I mean, yeah, there's some controversial stuff on here too, but not, I don't know. I'm gonna review this as best I can, this Vince McMahon DVD, and I'm not gonna go through everything on here, but I'm gonna go through some of the most key parts. This is gonna be also more of a I'm gonna go through some stuff that they glossed over on here. Sorry, I was asleep. I'll wake up eventually. But so this cover's really cool. It's not your typical DVD either. Well, yeah, I guess it is. But it's thinner than what? Not really. But like, actually this is kind of different because you flip it open like that. And the insert is in there. I'm not going to take it out or anything because I can't see it. But, yeah, the insert's in there. And then when we close it again, you have, I don't know which one's on which side of this, but on one side, the left side, you have a picture of Vince's face. So each picture, you have one of him smiling, and then you have one of him just kind of being, you know, the arrogant WWE owner or president. So I'm not gonna, I guess the discs are the same. The discs are the same when it comes to the art, and it says so they didn't do the M very well on here. So they tried to do McMahon like embossed on here, but they didn't do it very well. But it says McMahon right on the bottom, right there. So getting into the DVD itself. I don't know how long this documentary goes, maybe about 2 hours, hour and a half, maybe. They don't get into much of his childhood, which I guess some stuff went down in his life that he didn't want to talk about it. It's kind of like the Jake DVD. I mean, Jake talked about what happened with his life, but they don't get into his childhood much at all. But they basically he starts off by talking about his dad, who used to own WWE. Sorry. Before he did. So, Vince McMahon Sr. ran WWE before Vince Jr. did, and I guess one night his lead announcer basically wanted more money, and Vince Sr. wouldn't give it to him, and I guess the announcer, I guess his name was Ray Morgan or something, and he was like, well, if you can't meet my price, then I'm out of here, and Vince Sr. told him, well, then there's the door. And basically he made Vince Jr. The lead announcer. Vince started out as an announcer. Like, he didn't become like the owner or anything until after Vince died. Now, back in the day when Vince Sr. was still alive, WWE was just a territorial-based wrestling promotion. And then when Vince Jr. took over, it became the global phenomenon that it is today. So basically, he bought out all the other smaller wrestling companies in all the territories, like in smaller territories and stuff, and he bought them out basically and expanded. Sorry, my throat is, I don't know what's going on with my throat today. So he bought out all the territories. They interviewed Greg Gagne for this, and basically said that, yeah, he put his dad and him out of business. Vern Gagne, he used to run the AWA, the American Wrestling Association. But then they go right into the Monday Night War. They don't do anything, like, they don't talk about the whole thing with Vince trying to sabotage that pay-per-view that Jim Crockett was putting out, because they were doing Starrcade, Ted Turner and Jim Crockett, I think. I don't know, I think I got my history right. I'm a little gnarly on anything before, like, the 80s, or before the, like, 90s and stuff, so bear with me on this. So what they didn't talk about was the fact that Vince tried to sabotage and tried to bribe the cable companies to not do Starrcade. That's how they came up with Survivor Series. That's why they started Survivor Series, because of Starrcade, and which was like WCW's WrestleMania, and basically Vince was like, look, we're not going to give you WrestleMania if you go through with this. And then he eventually changed his mind and let them do it anyway. But, you know, they didn't talk about that much, which I wish they would have gone into more detail about. They tried to paint Vince in the best light possible, I guess, on this. I mean, yeah, they did talk about some of his flaws, but, like, I don't know. It's just, we need an updated documentary, which they did. The 9 Lives of Vince McMahon, which I still haven't seen yet. But as soon as I can watch that, I will review that. They went right into the Monday Night War between Ted Turner and Eric Bischoff and Vince McMahon. Of course, Ted Turner picked Eric Bischoff to be his executive vice president of WCW, and that's where they came up with Monday Nitro. Monday Night Raw and Monday Nitro went head-to-head on Monday nights. WWE and WCW. That's one time period I really wish I would have been a part of. I mean, yeah, I can relive it now on the network and stuff, but, you know, it's not the same. But, like, they get into the Monday Night Wars, then they go right into the Montreal Screwjob. I don't get into the steroid trial, they don't get into anything like that. Which is, yeah, I'm gonna fault them for that, because that's something I think that's a big part of Vince McMahon's life. And yeah, it's a bad part of his life, yeah, and it shouldn't have happened. Because, you know, he doesn't need to be giving steroids to his wrestlers. But, or allowing people to give them steroids. But, they glossed over that. They get right into the Montreal Screwjob, which, for those of you that don't know, I'll go over it again. Montreal Screwjob basically was Bret Hart was leaving the company, was leaving WWE, and he got a better deal, or he wanted to stay in WWE. Like, give me more, like, he wanted to stay in WWE. But Eric Bischoff had given him an offer or something for more money or something. And Brett was like, I think he was like, well, give me what Eric Bischoff was going to give me when he told Vince. And he said, I couldn't meet it. He basically just broke his own promise and stuck his foot in his mouth and was like, yeah, we can't pay you what Eric would have paid you, and we're going to have to get the belt off of you at Survivor Series. And Brett didn't want to drop it to Shawn Michaels, because Shawn and Brett had problems back then. And Shawn basically tried to start trouble with Brett and stuff like that. And, I mean, they're cool now, but back then they were not big fans of each other. So long story short, on the Survivor Series pay-per-view in 1997, Shawn got Brett in the sharpshooter, which is Brett's submission hold, and Vince McMahon came out, and Brett, I guess they either wanted to make it look like Brett was tapping out or something, or they knew Brett was tapping out or wasn't tapping out. And Vince had the timekeeper or whatever ring the bell. And Earl Hebner, who was the referee in the match, had promised Brett the night before on the plane, I'm not gonna screw you over or anything like that. But he did eventually, because, wanted to keep his job, which, Brett wouldn't really mad at him for he was back then, but I think he was more mad at Vince for just doing it to him. But that's the Montreal screw job, and that's why he went to WCW, and they really didn't do much with him. But that did give us the Vince McMahon, or the Mr. McMahon character. Before, he was always just the announcer on TV, and no one had really put two and two together until a couple years before, like, oh, Vince is the owner. Like, and another thing they didn't get into was when he went to Memphis. He did that angle in Memphis or something. I don't know, like, he went to another company or something and tried to, I don't remember what happened. Whatever that was, they didn't gloss over it, or they didn't talk about it. Some of the people they interviewed for this, they interviewed Jim Ross, The Big Show, JBL, the whole McMahon family, Shane, Vince, Stephanie, Linda, Triple H, John Cena, Edge, Kurt Angle, Hulk Hogan, Trish Stratus was interviewed for this, a lot of people. But, Bob Costas was interviewed. And then they talk about a lot of the stuff that he did with Stone Cold. And they talk about that sick freaking table spot that he hit when he faced Austin at St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1999 for the spot at WrestleMania or something, and that's when Big Show debuted. But that's also where Vince took that sick table spot. Basically, they were on top of the cage or something, and Austin bounced his head off the cage, and Vince basically landed through one of the tables, and it didn't break. And yeah, he got back up and finished the match. But that's one thing I will say about Vince McMahon. As much as I hate the man's guts, and that's a strong word, but I'll give him credit for taking some of those risks that he Yeah, he's always said, like, oh, I'm not gonna do something that I wouldn't tell my employees to do, my talent to do. And he talks about, they talk about them taking the company. I can't talk today, guys. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Freaking. They talk about taking the company public, and that was a big mistake. That would be a big mistake later because they've seen a lot of negativity, especially with the whole Vince McMahon scandal that's happening right now. That was not a good move. Yeah, I understand you want more people and more mainstream publicity, but not a good idea. You should have just kept that in the family business, as a family business, and you'll probably be fine. But I don't know. That's what they did. They kind of talk about how they're I think they're on the board of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He talks about, they get into his reaction to Triple H and Stephanie McMahon dating. This is after I think China was dating Triple H at the time, and I guess Stephanie was dating him, and I guess, like, she found out or something, and I don't know if they had just broken up, or if it was just one of those things where it just happened. Like, I don't know how that came about, but China found out, and yeah, they blackmailed her, which sucks for her, because, she has a sad ending also. Shane talked about not liking the relationship at first. I guess he still does now, but, or I think he still, I don't know if he feels like that now still, or if they're cool, but, they seem to be, because Triple H went to Shane's son's graduation. But, and they talked about some of the, like, how Triple H turned on Vince and went with Triple H or something like that, because they were forced to get married on TV, and then Stephanie turned on Vince. They get into the XFL, which, yes, Vince McMahon wanted to start a football league, which, worked out for a short period of time, and then they started incorporating WWE people into it, and it didn't work out. Because people got all over them for that. Which, I can't say I really blame them. Oh man, and then they get into a lot of the stuff that, like, the on-screen family dynamic of the McMahons. Oh my gosh, I can watch that stuff for freaking hours. How Vince and Linda would get back together and get divorced again, and Shane and Stephanie would turn on Vince, or Stephanie would end up slapping Linda and stuff like that. I don't know, this is just this family dynamic on Raw and on SmackDown was just freaking hilarious from the McMahons. And I liked Shane, personally. I mean, yeah, I like Shane. He's cool. I think he's the coolest out of all the McMahons. I mean, Triple H is cool, but I'm talking about out of the four: Vince, Shane, Stephanie, and Linda. But, And they talk about the Bob Costas interview where Vince basically was asked about a lot of things about the whole DX suck it catchphrase and all that stuff, and how Bob Costas just thought it was outrageous, and he wanted to hit Bob Costas at some point. It didn't happen, and then they did an interview like a year later or something. This was right around WrestleMania, I think. They talk about if I'm missing anything, I'm sorry. They talk about the street fight that Vince had with Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 17. That was also the night where Stone Cold Steve Austin turned heel and joined Vince at the end of the night. There was also they talk about the whole dynamic with Trish Stratus and Vince McMahon, which was just freaking disturbing. I'm not even gonna get into that. Go look it up yourselves if you want to. But it was a little unsettling. Basically, Trish and Vince were dating on screen, and Linda seemed to not have a problem with it, but I don't know how she couldn't. I don't know. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she really didn't have a problem with it. But I mean, I would. I mean, if you're, I don't know if I would or not, but it's not me. But he talks about they get into some of the like when Shane bought WCW. Remember when they did that simulcast on Monday Nitro and Monday Night Raw, where Shane is in a WCW ring and Vince is in a WWE ring, and it's like 6 days before WrestleMania 17, Shane's like, "Oh yeah, Dad, I bought WCW, and we're gonna be successful like we were in the past," and like stuff like that. And then they go on to say, which I had no idea this was even true, but who knows if it is or not, but Vince basically says, we didn't want to put them out of business. That was Eric Bischoff, which I can believe that, I guess. I mean, then again, he didn't like to acknowledge when other companies existed afterwards, but I don't know. Talks about splitting up Raw and SmackDown into two distinct brands, which I liked it. It was fine, but now it's like pointless. Talks about bringing Eric Bischoff to Monday Night Raw as the on-air general manager for Raw. Stephanie was the general manager of SmackDown. Talks about his feud with Hulk Hogan. And how that was 20 years in the making. WrestleMania 19. That seemed like the main event, not Brock and Kurt, which, not saying it was better than Kurt and Brock, but like it had a better build, or it seemed like it had the better build, which Brock and Kurt had a really good build to that. I like that match better. Although I will say, that spot that Brock did in the spot that Brock did where he missed the shooting star press was scary. Don't do that again, please. And then oh jeez, I can't even believe I'm talking about this. they come to the scene, or the part where they talk about the match that. Oh, before that, before we get into this next segment, we have to talk about him getting inducted into the Madison Square Garden Hall of Fame. So they show that in 2003 or whatever, 2004, 2003, I think. They talk about his I Quit match with Stephanie McMahon. Yes, that match actually happened. No Mercy 2003 pay-per-view. It was Stephanie McMahon versus Vince McMahon in an I Quit match. First time ever father-daughter I Quit match. And it was apparently right before Triple H and Stephanie's wedding, which everyone was against. Like, no, you're not. No, let's not do this, please. Shane basically like going, if you hurt her, I'm not gonna forgive you. And Linda saying the same thing. And Triple H, it's like, what? No, this is ridiculous. But it worked out, and oh wow. Talk about his match with Zach Gowen, or his treatment of Zach Gowen on television, who had one leg, he was prosthetic. And then, if I'm missing anything before this, I apologize, but they get into his freaking quad tear at the Royal Rumble 2005. Oh, jeez. So, this crazy freaking idiot standing behind gorilla position. That's what they call, like, where they go out and stuff, like, before they go out to the ring. So we're sitting in the gorilla position, and he doesn't stretch for 2 hours. And the end of the Royal Rumble match got botched. John Cena and Batista went out at the exact same time. So Vince comes running down to the ring, having not stretched, jumps into the ring, and in mid-jump, he tears one of his quads. And then he stands up. He goes to stand up and tears his other quad. And now he's like sitting in the ring trying to tell Cena and Batista, oh, restart the match. And like, Shane's trying to tell him, no, don't, just go back to don't try to walk out. We're going to get in a stretcher. And, Vince is refusing and Shane's getting mad at him and all this stuff. And like, really? I don't see how you freaking do that. Man's freaking made of steel or something. And he was in his mid-60s, I remind you. Or wait. Yeah. I think he was getting ready to turn 60. So then they like get into his patriotism and the charities that he donates to and Red Cross and stuff like that, and Make-A-Wish Foundation. And they basically just talk about how he basically loves his grandkids and stuff like that. Shane talked about him, just playing with Declan and stuff, his son, and stuff like that. But that's pretty much everything. Like I said, I wasn't gonna get into everything, but that's my Vince McMahon DVD review in a nutshell. Well, except for the matches and extras. Extras on disc 1. So we have just basically a couple stories about him. William Regal tells a story about him basically passing out in Vince's office because he was really bad on drugs or whatever. And Vince basically told him he passed out and told him to go get help and he'll let him come back. And he did. And William Regal came back. Triple H tells a story about how him and Stephanie beat Linda and Vince in a game of pool at their house, and Vince got so freaking mad about it that he had to go outside for like half an hour and cool down. And then Stephanie would like tease him on the intercom. I guess they had an intercom system at his house, and she said something and he would get mad again and stuff like that. And Vince was very competitive. Like, I think they said something about he never like took a vacation or something. But they talk about the "You Fired" segment and all the people that he's fired on television and stuff like that. Yeah, but that's all the stuff for disc 2 that I can remember. Matches on disc 2 include match with Stone Cold at St. Valentine's Day Massacre. His match with his handicap match with Shane against Stone Cold in a ladder match. It was Shane and Vince versus Austin in a ladder match for control of WWE. Street fight between Triple H and Vince McMahon at Armageddon 1999. His match with Shane McMahon from WrestleMania 17, 2001. We have a match at the Royal Rumble from 2002 with Ric Flair. We have his match with Stephanie McMahon from No Mercy 2003. We also have his match with Hulk Hogan, WrestleMania 19 that same year. And we have a Buried Alive match with The Undertaker at that year's Survivor Series. So that does it for the Vince McMahon DVD review. Like I said, if I missed anything, it's either because I forgot or didn't mention it. So I apologize. No, this is a good DVD. Despite what I think of Vince McMahon, I do think this is a really good DVD. Really good documentary. Good matches. But that's my Vince McMahon DVD review. Go check it out if you can find it. I'm sure it's floating around out there somewhere. And I'll see you guys later.